Greetings. This is Pastor Ken. I want to share just a short video with you that kind of comprises a summary of our celebration dinner just a couple of weeks ago. I was so pleased with those that were able to attend, and I realized that some were not able to out of caution, and that's understandable, or out of schedule. But here's a summary of what we talked about. I'm sure I am not going to tell you everything in this video that we talked about because I say so many things off the cuff sometimes, so my apologies to you in advance. But here's a summary, and my prayer is that you would think seriously, pray about this, that you would invest in the future of the Shippensburg Church of the Nazarene as we look at the challenge ahead, the victory ahead, but also the great leap of faith. We're excited and hope you can join us in this great adventure. Thank you, and God bless you as you watch this video this morning or this afternoon. The challenge of our present facilities are known by many of us, and I don't have to talk a lot about them, but they're real. As significant and beautiful as this particular building has been for our church congregation, it does have its challenges, specifically handicap access, which has become a much larger issue in our day. In addition to that, handicap bathrooms or bathrooms that are available for adults on the same level as our worship center. Classrooms, which we can always use more classrooms, but specifically expanded classrooms and conference area. But probably another major concern is the area for fellowship, where we can have dinners together, interact together, and so forth. It has been for 15 years a privilege for us to use the facilities called Premier Events. We have been blessed beyond measure. Once we could no longer have fellowship times down in the basement of the church, then there's a couple of people in our church by the name of Kennedys and Metzes that began to open their doors called Premier Events and allowed us to use that facility for church dinners, for fellowships, for wedding receptions, for funeral receptions, and so forth. And we want to say a thank you to them because they have done this out of the kindness of their heart and have accommodated us, adjusted schedules for us, and so forth. And so we've been very, very, very blessed, and we want to say thank you. We looked at a lot of different options of how we could deal with our present facilities. Adding an elevator, it was one of the issues we looked at, even partially so, but it got more complicated. The codes are getting harder. Adding an annex to or an addition to our present building, complicated by the fact that there's a daycare already meeting in the building, and that would necessitate putting sprinklers in the entire building. We looked at relocating as a possibility, and that was an option at one time, but not necessarily an option for us now. We kept coming back to this building on the other side of Kenneth Avenue, on our property, almost contingent to our property at least. This building that we've been using for 15 years as a fellowship space. With Kennedy's and Metz's moving to retirement, this building became available, and we began to talk and negotiate and plan and how God could use this particular building to fulfill the needs that we were looking to deal with. The architect walked through this building with us, spent time with me and the Action Task Force, presented this proposal as a way in which the building could be changed to look more like a church, putting the addition on the front of this building with 4 major classrooms, quite large, I might add, and making it look quite a bit different than it does as Premier Events. The inside is something like this in terms of planning. It's not quite right because we've changed some things since this drawing was made, but you'll notice the 4 classrooms in the front, which, as I said, are quite large, 14, almost 15 by 25 feet each classroom. and a large narthex or vestibule or foyer, whatever you want to call it, somewhere 14, 15, even 16 feet. And then the worship center itself is a little bit larger than our present facility, and we'll be able to seat probably another 25 to 30 than what they estimate at this point in time. But this is a general idea of what the inside might look like. What will the worship center actually look like? I don't know. All I can say is we're going to do our best to provide a place that is good to worship in, good to fellowship in, and good to interact with our community, so that if we need community space, we have it available. If we can add some university type events there, that's good too. But we want a place that God can use both for our congregation as well as the community at large. So this is where we are at this present moment. We had the church board vote on this back a couple of years ago now, and by unanimous consent, they approved the going ahead with premier events. The congregational vote, as you know, was last year sometime, and that was a 91 or 93, I think 93% positive vote, which was an exceptionally good vote. It was approved then by the district as the properties committee looked at it and tried to determine whether or not it was the right move for us and the right building, and they felt very positive. It was approved by the borough for parking and buffer spaces. And again, we had to do some negotiating, and fortunately, we came out, I think, on the winning side with a couple of green spaces and having to put in the amount of buffer spaces that they wanted. We were also approved by the borough for 2 conditional uses. One was to use it as a church building, which is required in this particular zone. And the other conditional use had to do with the property line in the back. And because of that, we were able to get this conditional use approved. So there's 2 of those. We're waiting on approval for our land development plan. That's our last step with the borough, except for building permits, of course. And that submission was made today with an application and 2 checks. And so we'll know something within the next 30 days or so as to what the Planning Commission and the borough has to say about our land development plan. So the road ahead is simply this. We're hoping that at the latest, September 3rd, we complete the final hurdle with the Borough Council, and then we can proceed to closing after that particular date. Now, I put this up as a slide because I want us to keep going back and asking why. Why are we doing this? Why all of this time? Why all of this investment? Why all this fuss? I mean, we run 2 worship services. They're not packed out. Why are we doing this? But just remember, it's handicap access. That's been huge. People have been praying about this for a long time. How can we create a space that's comfortable, easy to access, plus have restrooms available, and then have fellowship space as well as some additional class and conference room space? So that's why. So providing easier access is huge. Better people space, better people flow within the building, additional classrooms, as I already said, an opportunity for having community dinners as well as some community gatherings, and the possibility of a Monday evening service. We've been thinking about a weeknight service for those that are gone on the weekend or have to work on the weekends. And it seems like Monday night may be the best option. We're not there quite yet, but Premier Events allows us to move in on a Monday night or a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night with not interfere at all with our Jack and Jill daycare whatsoever. So that's another option for us. And to be honest, to accomplish this is a huge leap of faith. It really is. It is. In one sense, it's a step of faith. In another sense, it's a leap of faith. And that's why we're coming to you and we're sharing this, because we want you to be a part of this faith venture that we're on. The price of the building at the moment is $550,000 approximately. And I say approximately And I'm going to say that when it comes to any of the money, because of the fact that there's always little pieces to it that kind of add money or take away money. So approximately 550,000 is the actual price, but that includes the property of 429 East Orange Street. It includes the building that we're presently using as Premier Events, all the tables, all the chairs that are there, and a fully furnished kitchen, which is enormous in itself. We had an evaluation done on the property and the building, and it came back at about approximately $350,000 with no hiccups whatsoever. Trying to get the actual content evaluated was a little difficult, but we were able to get some people to walk through and look at the tables, look at the chairs, look at the facilities themselves. And based on the fully furnished kitchen, they said somewhere between $150,000 and $200,000, because the kitchen alone is an absolute gold mine for a church our size, or sometimes any size. So 550,000, or yes, 550,000 is a purchase price, and 250,000 of that would be a down payment that we would make toward the purchase, leaving us with a mortgage of 300,000 that we would pay off over 10 years plus interest. And that would include the 1,500-foot addition onto the front. Well, that doesn't include it, but in addition to that, we're putting on an addition, and then we're remodeling the facility as well, putting all new HVAC system in, and changing some doors and so forth, and some different walls. Approximate cost of that is around 300,000, around and approximately 300,000. So you can see 550 plus the 300. This is really our challenge when you get right down to it. We're looking at $900,000, somewhere between 900,000 and $1 million, most likely, because you never know what's going to come up in terms of the needs as we kind of move along. And that seems like a huge number, and it is. It's a leap of faith, to be sure, but God has called us to this, and he's been faithful, and I believe he's going to help us at this point. Well, I have kind of divided this up into 3 different categories, kind of goal 1, goal 2, goal 3. And no matter how many times I've talked about this, people say, well, that doesn't make any sense to me. And so I apologize if I confuse you even more. But this is level 1, which I call the purchasing goal. We need $300,000. That's for the down payment of $250,000 plus borough fees, architect, and surveyor. We've paid quite a few bucks to them already, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Level 2, is what I call the move-in goal of $300,000. And that's building the addition and remodeling, plus equipping the building and getting building permits. And then the level 3 is $300,000, which is the debt-free goal, paying the mortgage off, which adds up to about $3,000 per month for us. And it's a little under 3,000, actually. I just rounded it up to 3,000. So those are the 3 levels that I've been looking at: 300, 300, and 300. Now on hand, and this is where the celebration dinner can celebrate, and I am celebrating. I hope you can too, because on hand at this very moment, we have on the plus side of $350,000 in hand. That is phenomenal. And on top of that, we have paid over $32,000 on architect, surveyor, and borough fees to date. And so if you add, and it's probably a little bit more than 32,000 because we paid a couple of bills since that number was figured. So between the 350 on hand and what we've paid already, we're close to 390,000 that we've already raised toward this capital campaign project. That is something to celebrate. It really is. And I celebrate it because I think God has really helped us. So our goals, remember? First level, 300,000, second level, 300,000, third level, 300,000, okay? Down payment, move in debt-free. And where are we right now, did I say? Somewhere between 350 and 400. And then on top of that, our leadership team met with me a couple of months ago, and we sat down and I gave them a pledge card and said, I want you to write down what you're able to give over the next 3 years. And by the way, this is a 3-year capital campaign commitment. And they were able to share with me that over the 3-year period, over the 3 years, they will give $175,000. Now, I want to tell you how significant that is. That is huge. That is absolutely huge. And I celebrate that. Praise be to God. Now, that, in addition to the 350 plus that we already have, puts us up around 525,000. Now, do you remember our leadership goals? 300 and then 300, that's 600. We're almost to the top of the second goal. That is so exciting. So I want to thank the leadership team. I want to thank those that have been giving already toward capital campaign, because it's already making a huge difference. So today, right here, right now, I want to give you a special invitation. And that invitation is to participate with us in celebrating our next step or moving forward in faith. While I can't hand you a card through this video, at the end of this particular video, I'm going to give you a website that you can just go to and you can fill it out online. So you don't have to have an actual card. But in our celebration dinner, we pass these out and they're available at the back of the church on the table. But this is a way in which we can meet the present and future needs of our congregation and community. Whether we give so much weekly for 3 years or so much monthly for 3 years, so much yearly for 3 years, or there's just one lump amount that at least a couple of persons have talked about giving. And that is significant. It really is. So we need you to make these commitments so that we kind of know where we are in relationship to the $900,000. I don't know if you've ever heard this story before, the story of the 57 pennies, but it's a cute story. Well, I shouldn't probably say cute, but it's a neat story of Hattie Mae Wyatt. She was just a young girl in the 1880s, lived in the Philadelphia area. And she was found crying because there was not enough room in her Sunday school class for her to attend. The pastor was outside the church and heard her crying, put her up on their shoulders and carried her through the waiting crowds into the church. And she began saving her pennies because she wanted a Sunday school that was large enough so she wouldn't have to be forbidden to come into the class. In other words, she wanted a room that was large enough so that anybody that wanted to go to Sunday school could go to Sunday school. So she started saving her pennies, 57 pennies. That's what she saved. And the reason it stopped at 57 pennies is because she got sick and passed away. Now, 57 pennies in 1880 was a lot more money than 57 pennies in 2020. The parents of Hattie Mae brought the little purse, what she was keeping the 57 pennies in, and brought it to the pastor, Pastor Conwell, and shared the story of how she had been saving pennies because she wanted the church to be able to buy some more building or property so that the Sunday school could enlarge, because she didn't want to be kept out or any other kids kept out. The pastor was overwhelmed by this gift, sacrificial gift, I might add. And he took it to the church, and the church actually auctioned off, in her memory, 57 pennies. And they were able to gain $250. Now, again, that doesn't sound like a lot in our day, but I want to tell you, in 1880, it was huge. And they were able to use that $250 for a down payment for the huge building that was beside the church. And they turned it into an educational wing where they had lots of classrooms and meeting rooms and so forth. That particular building still stands, oddly enough, except it's on the campus of Temple University, because they ended up buying that building later on. But Hattie Mae's picture is in that building, and the foundation that they started calling the Hattie Mite Foundation, M-I-T-E, just the small amount, the small leaven, the small yeast adds so much. It's incredible, all because of her generosity of wanting to see a larger Sunday school. She gave all she had. Now that may sound like an 1880 story, but even before that, it was in the Bible. The boy who brought his 5 loaves and 2 fish to Jesus, when they didn't have anything to eat, the multitude was there, and Jesus said, you give them something to eat, but they had nothing, except this lad showed up with 5 loaves and 2 fish. Gave it to Jesus. Jesus gave thanks for this 5 loaves and 2 fish, offered it to the people. That day, over 5,000 men, plus women and children, were fed. And on top of that, there were 12 basketfuls left over. That's incredible. So you understand the saying, little is much when God is in it. Now, I'm not suggesting that you give just a little because God will bless it. But I am saying this, that some people say, well, I don't have very much. I don't have much at all. And that may very well be true. But whatever you offer to God, sacrificially or however, whatever you offer to God, God uses. Little is much when God is in it. He used Hattie Mae. He used the lad with the 5 loaves and 2 fish. And he'll use us to bring his kingdom right here in Shippensburg as it is in heaven. So today, the special invitation is for us to participate together in this next step, moving forward in faith. God has blessed us. God has used some unique people in our congregation over the years. And this is our time to step forward in faith and take that leap that God is calling us to. Some have asked, when does all of this start? Well, August, I think. It's kind of natural now that the celebration dinner is over. And we have this video clip almost ready. August, if you want to start paying in August, or however you want to do it, maybe you want to do it every other month or 6 times a year, or once a year, or whatever. You can choose that on that particular pledge form. I want to say, though, that this is one more step. I don't want you to hear me say, please don't hear this. I don't want you to hear me say that Premier Events is the goal, because it's not. That's our next step. I think God has so much more for Shippensburg Church of the Nazarene. I really do. I believe God has planted this congregation here, not only to minister to the university and to the community, but to even uttermost parts of the world. So this is one more step. It's not the end. Premier Events is only a next step. So I want you to dream with me. I love the looks of this building. And I keep thinking, what would this look like if we could take the ed building, the education unit, the building between our church and our Premier Events building. If we could take that house annex or that house education unit down and replace it with a community center like this, how much more we could minister to the community and to groups and to teens and to young people, university students. I wonder what God could do if we were obedient and walked in faith as he's called us to. I want you to dream with me here. We're not done. This is only the next step. Remember our purpose, our mission, where we exist to be this expression of God's love, to serve our community and our world. Don't forget that. There's so much more God wants to do through us, so much more. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and faith is taking that first step, even when you don't see the whole staircase. So I want to say thank you. Thank you for praying, investing, and walking with us in faith. Don't forget the website that will show up. You can look at that, and it'll be advertised in several ways. But I invite you to participate with us. Please take time to make this commitment so that we know what our next step is in this faith journey. Father, I'm grateful for this congregation. I'm thankful for their generosity and grateful that we don't live with this myth of scarcity, but instead believe that you take 57 pennies or 5 loaves and 2 fish and you multiply it for your kingdom. Use this congregation to minister to our world today. Amen. God bless you, and thank you for your time.